Jules, is it going to be your birthday soon?
Yeah, tomorrow.
Is it really?
Actually.
Jules, this is my friend Brad.
Hi, Jules.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
You too?
I want to get a latte.
Can I get an Americano?
So 1 Americano, 1 latte. Everybody, this is Craig Durr, Chief Analyst and founder of the Collab Collective. And I want to welcome you to a new webcast series I'm doing. It's called The Collaboration Cafe. Now, what if you could take some of these industry influencers and executives and sit them down over a cup of coffee? You know, just talk to them and get to know them. Talk about what's taking place in the future of work, remote work. What are they thinking about things like sustainability? Where do they think the industry is going? And if you could do it in a relaxed, casual way so you get to know them as people. That's what the Collaboration Cafe is all about, and that's what I'm excited to bring to you today. So join me for the first episode of the Collaboration Cafe. Oh, and by the way, we're gonna be talking to a good friend of mine, Brad Hintze from Crestron. Brad is the Executive Vice President of Marketing, and I think he's gonna have a lot of great things to share with us about sustainability, remote work, who knows what else, all over a cup of coffee. Come join me. Everyone, I want to introduce you to Brad Hintze. Brad, how you doing?
I'm great, Craig. So good to see you.
Good to see you. Hey, thanks for joining me on this first edition of the Collaboration Cafe.
It's a beautiful day. I'm happy
It
to
is.
be here.
We should talk about that. We're
Yeah.
actually meeting in Park City, Utah.
Mhm.
Now, you actually are a Utah resident.
I am. I was born and raised in Utah and live south of Salt Lake City. And
Yeah.
it's such a great place with all the mountains and the skiing and the snow and all the great things to do here.
I'm part of the problem and the challenge of people here in Utah. So I'm living here remotely. I am actually living one of those experiences that's been driven by our new workforce right now. Just having spent the summer out here and trying to continue to do the commute and everything else. Now you also, though, you work remote from your corporate headquarters from Crestron. They're located back in New Jersey, right?
Yep.
And so how long have you been doing this, working remote for them?
So I've been there about almost 4 years, doing the remote and the commuting, and I commute out there about once a month, maybe twice a month. Just depends on what we have going on.
Right.
And then the rest of the time, I work from here or out visiting partners and customers. And you know, it's a great setup to have the flexibility to be able to live that way. I always love going into the office, though. It's super energizing.
I love it.
But it is good to be able to be productive when I'm here too.
That's good. Well, I'm glad you're here. Can I buy you a cup of coffee?
Let's do it.
Let's start walking this way. Hey, now, but you actually have a large team. Now they're virtually all around the world.
Yeah, so we have a distributed team. It's not like they're all centered just in New Jersey. And so that flexibility is great for me and for the rest of the team as well.
So tell me, what is your remote work policy right now for your team? How's that look?
So we actually have a really good hybrid and remote setup. So we have a number that are just strictly remote.
Okay.
And then we have a number that are hybrid 2 days in the office.
Okay.
And then they can choose whether they want Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you give them the flexibility to choose how that's taking place there, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And each of the individual teams will tend to make that decision together, just for their own team dynamics, and they make the best decision, you know, balancing the needs of the employee and the needs of the team as well.
Got it.
Yeah.
So, but with the team distributed and you got this 2 day a week policy with flexibility, there's got to be some challenges to it, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So tell me, what are some of the challenges you think you're seeing right now?
I think that the biggest challenge, the thing that I spend the most time thinking about, is how do we keep the team connected and feeling like they're totally engaged.
Right.
I'm not worried about productivity, really. It is, how do they feel like they're getting that team commitment or the team culture, that vibe that you get when you're in the office. I think that it's really easy for a remote worker or a hybrid worker to feel like they're on an island.
Right.
And we don't want that because it helps increase the loyalty, right? It helps that help for one another on a team. You really need to foster that.
It's really interesting. I actually just wrote an article about Dell And Dell had a policy where they were trying to encourage people to come back into the office by tying it to promotions. If you came back into the office, that was one of the requirements to be for promotions.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, Dell only had about 50% of their people sign up for that. Now 50% did, which was good.
Yep.
But it was interesting to say, what is motivating those people?
Yeah.
And I think it comes back to what you're talking about. Did they feel a sense of connection to that culture, to what was going on there?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, like, for me personally, when I go to New Jersey and I spend a few days in the office, the thing that is so invigorating for me is that face-to-face connection, right? And so it is, you know, if you don't get that injection periodically, how do you keep that within a team? And I think that's a priority for organizations.
We could throw technology against it. Do you have any cool technology ideas that you're liking right now? It's one of those really interesting things I think people are coming to realize right now is self-regulation when they're working hybrid.
Yep.
You talked about your team is still being productive.
Yep.
You know what the hardest time I have is when to stop.
Yep.
I don't know about you. Is there a trick that you have just to figure out it's time? Call it.
Yeah, it's usually I'm never good at it either. Usually by dinner time though, I naturally will just come to an end. I have the benefit of working for a primarily East Coast based company.
So everyone's gone.
So that helps. Yeah.
It's gone.
And so by the end, you know, by 3 o'clock my time, everything's starting to wind down, and then I can focus on my stuff.
Yeah.
And so then that's a good natural thing. And so I start very early and then finish up, you know, early evening.
Right.
It's that helps.
Yeah.
But it's certainly a consideration.
Right. You take advantage of being out here in the West when you do that?
Yes.
I would love to do that right now. I mean, so let me tell you, for example, let me show you what my day looks like.
Okay.
You tell me how yours might look. I'm waking up early. Same thing here. We're in the mountain time zone, right? Mm-hmm. I've got to clean up some emails.
Yep.
Usually it's a great time to do some productivity work like focus time.
Yeah.
Writing. For you, it's probably doing some other, you know, whatever you do as an executive type stuff.
Nothing at all. Yell at people.
Mister, what are you in right now? No. But at that point in time, then I'm finding for myself doing blocks in the days is what, and kind of sticking to those blocks. Because otherwise, I get too easily distracted. Yeah. Any tactics like that you're using yourself?
Yeah. So for me, a lot of my day gets sucked up with conversations with people.
Oh, I'm sure.
And so I have to block out time to work on stuff. And if I'm not proactive at putting into my calendar, it's like, go work on this project and then go work on this project. I just end up spending all day on calls. And that's important. I mean, that's a really important part of my job. But I need some of that thinking and work time on some of those things too. So I do. I typically get up pretty early and I'll go for a walk.
Right.
And that's actually when I have a colleague in the UK.
Oh.
And so I'll call him. It's 5:30 my time.
Perfect.
You know, it's late morning for him. And it's a good time just to connect on a couple things, and we riff on stuff. And so that's a really good connection. And then I'll go in and pound through a couple of emails and then jump into meetings. And then afternoon is when I tend to do my focus time.
Yeah. My creative is in the morning. Sounds like your creative is in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Cool. This is some recent news I would love to ask you about.
Okay.
One of the companies that both you and I work with, Zoom, actually came under criticism from a statement made by their chief people officer, the person in charge of their HR. He was talking about how Zoom was transitioning to their own work policy. Now, the media always spins it. They always say it's a mandate, but they're trying to get people back into the office at least 2 days a week. Very comfortable with what you guys have going on as well, too. But in the same interview, he spoke and said, but I'm fully remote and that policy doesn't apply to me.
Yep.
Did you hear about this interview?
I did hear about this interview and I feel so bad for him. Right?
I feel like he might have been caught or misquoted, but but what do you think about this dichotomy of some people working fully remote, some being hybrid and being mandated to come in just based upon the fact that they're close to an office?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think it's a challenge. I mean, we have wrestled with this internally as well. We have certain teams that work really well hybrid. They want to be hybrid and, in a mix of remote and hybrid employees. But then we have some other teams that want to be everyone in the office. And so the challenge has been, how do you do that equitably so that this department has this policy and this department has that policy? And I think that organizations will continue to feel it out and figure it out. I think, for him, I don't know all the dynamics behind closed doors, and perhaps he was simply misquoted, but I don't think any organization can have a strict, this is the policy for the whole organization.
Yeah, right.
And I think you need that flexibility on a per department basis based on the function, based on the needs of in-office or hybrid.
Right.
You should have that flexibility built in so that you can accommodate that.
I agree.
Yeah.
This is what I saw that he did that I thought was really interesting. So they stated some policies, and if you drill into the policies, it becomes interesting. The mandate was applying to people who lived within 50 miles of the office. One of their offices is San Jose. If you're within 50 miles of San Jose, that could still be a 3-hour commute to get in.
Yep,
and
absolutely.
And you're talking about that. Was it nuanced enough to be to the individual, to the location, what have you, right? I mean, ultimately what I think they're trying to do is this. Their job is to drive not just in work in the office, but when do you work in person?
Yep.
And when you start defining when you're going to work in person and what those key ideas are, that's great. As a company, you have offices, and that's a key asset. You can outfit them really well.
Yep.
You can make them very comfortable, inviting. You can make it a team community space so you can leave things there and come back to the work and what have you. All those are the right things, I think, taking place, but they got lost in some of the rules and regulations, like you said. How they wrote it out in black and white, right?
Well, I think that organizations also have to pressure test ideas, right? And there are plenty of times where you'll hear from an employee, well, I want to be fully remote, or I want to come in 2 or 3 days a week. Great, let's do that as a policy. Let's see the reaction. Let's see what happens, and then we can adjust from there. And then there is also the concept of, well, I want a nice office space when I come in.
Yeah.
Okay, great. How much should we invest? How much should we really make sure that we have built out? You don't really know until you kind of force that issue. And so sometimes you have to do some of these challenging decisions in order to make sure that you have a clear path forward.
Real estate is one of the largest investments that companies make that has the longest term commitment. And it does play into, and it's unfortunate, it has to play side by side with a very fungible idea, very important idea like human capital and how that plays into space. Right? Long-term decision, immediate, tangible one that changes from week to week based upon what's taking place in life. It's tough.
It is.
You know what the trick would be?
What?
Good coffee.
Good coffee is always the right trick.
How about we go get a cup of coffee?
Let's do it.
All right, let's do that. Good.
Let's go back a little. I wanna feel like way back when. Let's hold back a little. Let's make things good again. Take things back. Take things back. Been going on.
Jules, thank you so much. And happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
I hope you have a good one. You said she won 8 medals in the Special Olympics.
yeah.
You did? Oh
8
my
medals.
God. In what? In skiing?
In skiing.
Oh
I
wow.
won the gold in the slalom and won the silver in the jack.
Congratulations.
Isn't that
That
crazy?
is incredible. Yeah. You clearly take advantage of being in Park City with all the skiing.
And I've been doing Zumba for 10 years.
Yeah, but you don't medal in Zumba, do you?
No.
Okay, no, not at all. Yeah. Thank you so much, Jules.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Jules.
Let's go see if we can find those chairs out there now.
Okay.
Want to do that?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Get back to the higher ground. Let's go back a little. I wanna feel like way back when. Let's hold back a little. Let's make things good again.
So, what do you think of my office view here?
I love the mountains.
Isn't this great?
It's a beautiful place.
It feels really spoiled. But this is a great segue to another thing I wanted to ask you about. You and I actually have been doing a lot of work talking lately about sustainability in our industry.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking about this. Do you feel like there's an authenticity to how people are approaching sustainability? Or is it a bit of like Me Too right now going on?
Yeah, I think that certainly there are those that are legitimately committed to sustainability. And then there are those that are just doing it to put a thin veneer over what they're doing. Whether it's to appease their shareholders or to attract a certain kind of customer. And then I think that there are those that are also just trying to figure it out.
I know.
Right.
I think that's a lot of it too.
Yeah.
If you could take a negative angle on it and call it greenwashing, I've heard that term.
Yep.
But I've heard someone refer to it as the green wave.
Yeah.
And the way they kind of alluded to it was, look, we are trying to figure this out and get it right. In the Americas, we're actually behind the European markets.
Yep.
I mean, they're much more mature. They have regulations around that. They have certain measurements that they want to put in place. I think the best thing we've got going for us is we've got a case study that we can mimic and probably follow those as well. So working for an international company, I mean, I think you guys are already a leg up on that as well too, right?
Yeah, we see a lot of pressure from the Europe regions, and clearly Asia too is starting to pick up. A lot of customers, they are asking a lot of questions about it. It's a demand, it's a requirement for a lot of, even beyond the governmental regulations. There are many customers now that's just an expectation from all of their suppliers.
Wow.
And we have several that are actually actively engaged in saying, I want this solution, I want it to show up like this to attain my own sustainability goals. And so I think that it's a good thing to see this partnership that's happening. And I think that's where it becomes really genuine and real, right? And it feels like there's a real commitment there to sustainability, not just let's check a box, right?
Here's a great, interesting idea off of that. I love the idea of what you talked about, a partnership between the customers and the vendors.
Yeah.
What do you feel about partnerships in between vendors around sustainability?
Yeah.
So for example, there's a company out there that is advertising that they're offering to share any sustainability best practices that they learn with other peers and whatever. Do you think that's something that's sustainable in a sustainability story?
I think so, because I think that within as we have gone deeper along these initiatives, there is a steep learning curve. And so many people are really looking for new and interesting and innovative ways. And I think there needs to be better knowledge sharing. And I think that's really important. I think for us too, as a vendor, we work with our channel partners. Yeah. And channel partners play a big role in fulfilling some of those sustainability initiatives. And so we actually have partnered with another organization, SAVE.
That's right.
And they're really great about educating customers, educating channel partners. And so hopefully together we can all be focused on these things. We have to manufacture products in a really sustainable way, but we all have to adopt the right kinds of business practices to implement it.
So as vendors, we are here, I'm here, we're all here ultimately to manage businesses. We want to do good with the businesses. But you had this challenge, profitability, and then we're talking about sustainability. I know that you have crafted a really great value proposition that your products have a longevity. They have a shelf life that actually contributes, because in that reuse, replace, renew story, they are keep using, reuse, right? How's it play?
So first of all, I didn't craft it.
Okay, right.
And I think that's an important distinction, that has always been a central tenet of the company. From the founder, George Feldstein, he was deeply committed to delivering products that were high quality, high performance, and they lasted a long time. And that making sure that you're building products that way has always been a part of our business. And now we see that it has tremendous benefit in these kinds of things. And so for that, it's easy for us to remain committed to that. And so we make R&D investments all the time around what technology platforms do we commit to? How do we innovate on that? How do we prioritize continually adding value to existing platforms? Now, a lot of businesses, they plan their revenue cycles around generational upgrades.
That's true.
And it is tempting to want to just rapidly go through these new generations to drive new revenue, but it's not, that's one way to do it, and it works well for people. But that's not who we are.
It's funny because it ties back to the first conversation we were having about remote work. It's sustainability. There's an authenticity, I think, that comes through. And I think that is what's going to help people buy into and support a story. If they see a company doing something in a very authentic way and learning in the way, I think it's going to play well. Just like people are learning how to do work, and it's authentic actions that help drive that experience, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, if you can only package that up and put it on the wall somehow, but you can't. You have to experience it, right?
You do, absolutely.
You have to understand what's going on.
I wanna feel like way back when.
You know, there's one other interesting sustainability challenge in our industry. I'm concerned that we may not have enough young talent coming into our industry. You weren't expecting this question. This is kind of a curveball.
I wasn't, but we had a lot of conversations about this yesterday. Actually.
Yeah, well, tell me about this.
Yeah, so I totally agree. I think that one of the challenges we have, and I think one of the opportunities that exist for our trade associations and for other vendors, and even for channel partners too, is this industry. There is a tremendous amount of opportunity, and we're now at a maturity level from a technology perspective and an industry go-to-market perspective that you can simply attract smart, business-minded people. Yeah, they can come in and build a really great business. Yeah, but we're not reaching them and we're not inspiring them. I think in the early days of the technology alone was pulling people in. Right. Now we're more mature. I think that you can take the mature technologies plus the big business opportunities and get some new talent in. And we need to figure that out.
I think we do. I almost wonder if there's a way to start making this part of the skill set or the idea start in school. I mean, there's a lot of focus on some very nouveau things like AI engineering and some of these very important things. But we have an industry that has so much consistent business and revenue and employment, but we don't have people there to partake of it. I feel like more people fall into the business
absolutely
than they do otherwise, right?
Well, I did. I fell into it, and so many people that I'm surrounded by, they fell into it and they fell in love with the industry, and so they're still there. But I think that one of the other benefits of being in an industry that's beginning to mature from a technology perspective is you can start using modern technology approaches, modern programming languages, all of that. And then you can start attracting some of that talent. So for instance, in the early days of our control systems, we had a more proprietary kind of approach to programming. And now though, we have tools that you can use C#, you can use HTML5. Yeah. And these are modern modern development languages and approaches. And so then you can pull people right from school and they're productive right away. Right, that's great. So let's put the crystal ball in place right now. Okay. We're looking forward right now. What do you see taking place in the world of collaboration? What's coming down the road here? I mean, we've got AI, we're talking about AI, but how are people going to change that, how they might work here in the future? What do you think? I think that, as so frequently happens, there's going to be a pendulum shift. Yeah. And we were forced into a pendulum shift of all remote. Now we're kind of pulling back. And I think that we'll continue to see a swing into a focus around in-person collaboration. Yeah. But there will be more deliberateness around that. And so I think that where today, when somebody says the word collaboration, I think a lot of us default to this notion of a virtual attendee and a virtual meeting. I think that will be centered again around virtual, but also in person. And there will be an emphasis on that, I think is really important. I can't agree with you more. One of my taglines right now, it's not return to the office, it's return to in person. Yeah. And the challenge for us is to figure out when and where that in person is best for both the individuals and the business. Yeah. And that goes back to that idea. The business has offices. That's a key asset. It's not going to solve everything, but they can invest in that for those in-person moments that work well. Yeah, because I think those in-person moments become some of those most critical for the business. Right. And whether it is about a meeting or a decision point, or it is just that culture defining, refining kinds of things. So I think that in-person shift and that in-person emphasis will be a big deal. Clearly AI is going to be a big deal. And I think that we're still all figuring it out. I mean, we were talking about it and laughing that, we're still so early. I mean, if you were to draw a correlation between the internet, we're in the CompuServe. Right? We are. We're not even in the AOL era. Yeah, we're not even there yet. We aspire to be at the AOL era, let alone the era that we're in today on the internet. It's definitely the in the back of my mind, I hear that modem right now. Yeah, it won't be too long before we look at what's happening with ChatGPT and that's so archaic. It's like Alta Vista, I know, browser. God, you're just blowing my mind with all these flashback now. Okay. I mean, I'm dating myself, but that's where we're at. And I think that, another thing that we've been talking about internally a lot is, while certainly AI will help benefit some of the features of solutions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you see that with what we're doing in intelligent video, for instance, speaker tracking and speaker
Right.
framing and, face direction and that kind of enhancing that solution experience. But I think for us and our industry too, as the AI era progresses, organizations will build their own LLMs that are unique to them,
Mm-hmm.
that are secure,
Mm-hmm.
their own AI approaches and their own, if you want to call it, an AI stack. And so how can our industry contribute to the intelligence in that AI stack?
Right.
And I think that's one of the really great and exciting opportunities ahead.
It is.
We don't know what it looks like, in the same way that CompuServe era didn't really know what today would look like from an internet perspective.
Sure.
But people knew there was promise, and through a continual iteration, that's where you get there.
Yeah, I mean, your products, our industry, the tools we use touch so much data in
Mhm.
terms of audio, video,
Yeah.
content,
Yep.
let alone other things we can contribute in terms of presence when people are in an office physically,
Yep.
when they are online as well too. All that is just the huge exploration of that idea of the data lake, right?
Yep.
A lot of other stuff we can contribute.
Well, I think that even more importantly, you can associate all that data with the rest of the data from the organization
Right.
itself, right? And so actually on my drive up, I was talking to a colleague and we were bouncing off some of these really great use cases. For instance, today, if you're an AV manager at an educational institution,
Yeah.
and you're weighing, should I make these technology investments? What's the refresh cycle look like? What kinds of devices should we put into the room? And you might implement some analytics that will tell you this device is used so frequently.
Yeah.
But the disconnect is through those analytics, which is better visibility than you ever had before, you're still not connecting to the actual value that drives to the organization.
Oh, interesting.
For an education institution, it's all about academic performance.
Yeah.
Does this device contribute to better academic performance? In an AI world, and where you have a connection between the data from the AV systems and the data of the rest of the organization,
Interesting concept.
right? And
Yeah.
an AV manager can take and run reports and query and say, all right, I've got classrooms that have document cameras and they get used frequently. What's the academic performance of the students that are in those classrooms compared to those that don't have that? And do they
Interesting.
overperform? Do they underperform? Is there no difference, right? And unless you live in this kind of AI world, you couldn't really ask that question. You couldn't get that data, right?
You couldn't
So-
even fathom putting that question together in some
no,
ways.
you wouldn't, because
Right.
it was so much work. All that data lives in a million different Excel
Right.
spreadsheets.
Yeah,
Right.
if even there. That's
Yeah.
incredible.
Right.
I love that idea.
Yeah. And so I think that's the opportunity as we build out into
Yeah.
this. And so how do you build that AI infrastructure?
I love it. AI
Right.
tying back to those core missions, those core objectives of those businesses are.
Right.
Not just productivity or
No.
utilization,
Right.
but something else to a higher level.
Right.
I love that idea. Well, you know what? I think my coffee's done. I think it's
Mhm.
time to wrap it up. This is everything I wanted this first edition of the Collaboration Cafe to be.
Good.
I got
Yep.
to understand what you're thinking about, got to know you better. And we talked about some really interesting things of the future of our industry right now, right?
Yep. Absolutely.
It was a good cup of
I
coffee.
loved it. Yeah. It was definitely worth the drive.
It was. Brad, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you coming by.
Thank you, Craig.
Good.